Hello there, I'm Carey. If you've heard of Nordstrand Audio, you probably already know I've been designing and making bass guitars, pickups, and other fun musical things for more than 20 years now. Well, keeping a small company alive is a stressful endeavor, and eventually it caught up with me when I was diagnosed with squamous cell carcinoma of the tongue in 2020. A profoundly challenging and traumatic treatment during a global pandemic offered me an opportunity for real change. Suddenly, I became obsessed with really sorting out why I do what I do every day. It's recently become apparent the most effective way to achieve some clarity in this regard is through the pursuit of unconditional curiosity. What is unconditional curiosity? Well, let's ask my most favorite question, what wants to happen, and find out together. Welcome. So I have my tune, You Get to Be Here, up in Luna here. Universal Audio's Luna, which we've been using pretty exclusively. Well, I've been using it exclusively since it came out. Actually, I got a beta version of it. I'm tight with the guy that runs the beta, one of the beta teams up there, and maybe the beta team up there. Anyway, I adore this platform and everything about it. So, and I'm getting results these days that I couldn't imagine when I started, being obsessed with sound friggin' 30 years ago or whatever it was. Okay, so this track is called You Get to Be Here, and it started with this phrase. Well, let me just walk you through what we got in this session here right now so far. Starting at the top, I always do a track length clip, and it's just a committed selected section of track that then once I get the track length sorted out, every time I go to print it, it's exactly the same length start to finish, because I just grab that and say, all right, do the export. So that's a pretty cool trick that I really appreciate. And then, when the length changes on it, you just select a little bit more or slide it and then commit that again, and now you got it. Like on this one, we had to add, I have this singing bowl that we have, and it's huge. And that thing, so I recorded that thing for this track, and so that's what starts the track out. But we had to add that after it sort of evolves to the point where there's a break in the middle where you can hear the bowl, and then at the end it kind of fades out. So we thought putting it on the front, it wasn't on the front originally, but it was in the middle, and then we added it to the end, and then we thought, well, now we might as well put the other end on it, right? So so it starts with that, just kind of get you in this sort of earthy vibe. And then we get into the drums. So from the top down again, we got the drums, a room mic, kick, snare bottom, snare top, a couple of toms, overhead left and right. And then when I track bass, I end up with a bunch of tracks, because I have this thing that I do where we'll have a track rocking and okay, I like that bass part. Okay, oh, I goofed it up right there. Okay, so then I'm gonna just duplicate the track without, it's Option Shift D on Luna, duplicate without content, and then I can hear the other track, and then I can kind of bounce back and forth between ideas. So I always end up with like a little pile of tracks when I'm doing my bass parts, with vocals for sure, and then guitar parts too. Elder does his things a little more old school deliberately and doesn't bounce around through tracks like that. He'll do a take until he's happy, and then move on from there. So yeah, this is a tune from my band, the Pre Estatic Joy Disorder, which is basically me and Elder D and this friggin' unbelievable local drummer named Lucas. And we've just been having a hoot of a time putting this material together. So this song kind of unfolded out of sort of personal work, and feelings about the world that we're in right now, given it's March 2025. Lots of people are pretty scared. Lots of people are pretty angry. Lots of people are not really here in this world. They're worried about that, and they're freaking out about that, and they're trying to jam this into that. And man, it's a challenge just to get up and get going every day. It's so, this is my experience of this. And so that's where this came from. This track is a growling affirmation to everybody, to everyone on the planet. The message is you get to be here. And there's also this message in here about the planet, the earth, and how we got to take care of it. And how love is really, the mission at this point. And so this is a track that I tried to kind of put love into, so that maybe you could, imbibe some through your ears. Let's put it that way. So the you get to be here thing is I first heard that, I think it was probably in therapy with a man named Michael Seek, and this would have been 2009, 2010-ish, when my first marriage failed, and I needed help to help me figure myself out and fix myself. Usually when you get into therapy, you're figuring you're gonna figure it out, with your mind and solve your problems by knowing what's going on. That's only half the battle, my friend. So Michael Seek, in an attempt to get me to move out of my head into like a more physical feeling of existence, which, with how I was cut, how I was made, it was a really anxiety-driven performance, transactional existence, really. Do and then get love, and then don't do and then become, worthless, or cut off, or, whatever the thing is. So, so this man, this brilliant therapist and human and teacher and guru and ultimately, embodiment of love in my life and acceptance, would say to me, you get to be here, when I was trying to figure things out, right? So, that was not something I'd really heard before. And, if you listen to the song, you kind of get, there's the voice that comes along. And, that so that internal critic. So the journey out of this performative doing and then getting way of existence involved a lot of you get to be here at retreats and other things. There was a thing that Michael and his partner therapist, Jeff, and there was a retreat center in on the Ortega Highway called Pine Manor, and I started going to retreats there, and it was something called the Threefold Way. And I have some of the papers around here I'm going to explore and see about incorporating into some of these videos. So this Threefold Way, we would go with a group of anywhere from 10 to, 20 some odd folks up at this retreat center. And there would be, typically it would be a 3-day, maybe Thursday through Sunday, if you're lucky, if you get that amount of time and you can afford that amount of retreat. They feed you, you have a place to sleep, and then you have some learning and kind of relational exercises as you kind of come into the weekend. Michael would do a presentation, try to help us understand the dynamics of how ego and deeper self kind of are and struggle to be, and all of these things. So it was just to kind of set the stage for what we call the work, which was then Saturday and Sunday. Everybody would get a session of facilitation time with Michael and another facilitator partner. And then you would sit there and talk and explore, and he would facilitate your ultimate destruction, if you want to put it that way, your egoic way of holding things in this holding space with all these folks. It's really a powerful thing. Everybody has their own version of things typically that are going on in this sort of group process. And powerful transformation could occur pretty rapidly, even when it felt like it didn't. You typically would have to deal with figuring out how to be again in the world, as you're trying to escape your egoic approach to things. So you get to be here. Yeah, that's kind of where it came from. He would say things like, you get to be here, and he would say things like, what wants to happen, and he would say things like, one of the things I pulled out of this whole thing and this relationship was the term unconditional curiosity, which is what this whole thing is named, right? It's the umbrella for all this video content I'm doing now. And Unconditionally Curious, the first time I heard it, it was in a review of the Threefold Way retreat that one of the participants wrote, and he mentioned unconditional curiosity. And I remember the phrase was so challenging to my being at the time that I couldn't remember it for a while, and I had to kind of go, what were those two words that I was so kind of touched by and freaked out by at the same time? And so I had to go look it up again. And what is unconditional curiosity? So these concepts and things were challenging for me, and became less so over the time of doing the work and the retreats. And as I'm going to make the case, any creative pursuit is part of doing the work, because creativity is manifestation of authentic self, and authentic self is not an egoic thing. So you have to get the ego out of the way. You can take a break, you can watch over there, whatever you got to do to get in this space of potential, of unconditional curiosity, right? Of, I don't have any demand of this moment. I am wondering what's going to happen next. What am I feeling? What's resonating? What am I playful about? What makes me want to giggle, or what makes what am I mad about? What's hurting me? What is there pain that feels like it needs some way of coming into being? And music is one of my main chosen mediums of that. So yeah, there's some tunes that have a bit more pain in them. But this one, You Get to Be Here, is really about affirmation, liberation in the sense of freeing myself from my egoic reactivity, all right? That kind of liberation. Achieving unconditional curiosity, like accepting the world, accepting you know, all these, what is, and then moving from that place of acceptance to a joy state. We have a cover we did about joy, neuroplasticity, which I hope delivers some of that energy. But this one is really a in-your-face affirmation. So it started with just this chant: "You get to be here. You get to be here. You get to be here." And that was kind of all I had. I built a groove up, and then I had that voice. I did that voice. There's that little voice again, and sort of this internal question back and forth about what is this? I'm curious about what is this voice, and why is it the way it is every time? It's this sort of critic. It never is like, anyway. So that was all I had. I had that little thing, and then that first, that first verse where, it's just like, you get to be here, kind of feel your body, feel the sun, feel the earth, feel the nature, move around, get in it, right? Get propriocepted, as they say, feel really in your body, okay? Now I sent it to Elder D, and he was in Italy at the time, and he's usually pretty positive in our communications about music, but he said, "Oh, I think I got something for this, and I dig it." And so it sat for a couple of weeks. He came back, and finally he took a crack at it, and he sent it to me while I was up north visiting my mom. And I got back. I didn't have a chance to listen to it until I got back. You got to listen to things when you're in the right space for it. So I put it on the counter while my wife and I were in the kitchen, and she was chopping or doing something, dinner prep, and played it. And my God, he pulled whatever that was. It just felt like it kind of came out of a different part of me that I didn't know was there. So, yeah, he added his parts, then he put the guitar on it, and I'm like, what is going on? I had no idea. The arrangement, not much intention in how that ended up. And so far I've gotten comments of wow, it's surprising at every turn. It's engaging the whole way through. It's so kind of unconventional in how the parts come at you that it keeps you curious the whole way through. Isn't that cool? So, and I've gotten that from several people who have heard it. So where we're at right now is we're putting some final vocal elements into it. We're really kind of tightening in on the mix. Elder's not happy with the plosives that I've got on the you get to the t. So we're trying to sort out. He's got a kind of a freaky high-end perception. Now my ears are what they are, and I went through chemo that some people lose their hearing completely. I was fortunate I didn't. I definitely had some impact on my high end. But that said, I hear in some ways better than I ever did because I've learned to pay more attention to what works. And so I probably should get a hearing test at some point just to see what I'm working with. But I mean, you hear the results of the material that we've created, and I got some tweaker friends that are always, pretty complimentary on the sound quality and the mix composition and depth and things like that. So so my ears seem to work. Also, I've built this company that sells products that are successful. So a significant enough number of people like what I like, and are willing to pay money for it. So that's a pretty good affirmation. Anyway, so we've got a bunch of tracks of vocals here. This got a little out of control with vocals. The bass, this is pretty much a single playthrough. Most of the places where you see cuts, There was one I had to move at the beginning of the sort of up the neck, bumpy, funky part, because there was no click when I made a video. I did a video of this, recording it, and I just didn't hit it. The camera was on. So I moved those two. The rest of this is untouched in terms of timing. And I've just deleted, extra noises in between and such. So I really try to make my parts these days played in and not, quantized or adjusted. And I mean, as a player, it's taken me, well, I'm 54, right? So it's taken me a long time to get to a point where I can leave these tracks organic, played in as original. The drums are barely touched as well. Lucas played that in pretty much as you hear it. There's no quantization on that. So we're really trying to capture the material as a band would record it in the old days, right? With just tape. You can't adjust anything. It's the DNA of the band performing ends up in the recording when you do that. I think, and I think it lends this realness to everything. And I get that from people too. They're like, it sounds like, early 90s, this, that, or that. Yes, thank you. Very cool. That's when I kind of dove into the recording industry. I went to Grove Center for Contemporary Music in Woodland Hills for a 6-month program and ended up working at a studio called Devonshire in North Hollywood for about maybe a year and a half total. And then came back to Redlands with my tail between my legs because that scene was not for me at the time. Anywho, back to that's kind of why I think the music has kind of the vibe and the energy it does, and sort of the style of production that we use. And Elder comes from similar era. Tape. He started a tape studio in Long Beach called The Compound. It's still there. It's very cool. Back to the track. So Elder's got his guitar bits in here, and you can see that I've got, these are the same guitar, 2 different mics, same guitar, 2 different mics, same guitar, 2 different mics. And so this is kind of a warm and fat versus bright and edgy thing. One of them got a little more room than the other. I'm pretty sure it's the 57 because I think that was pointing down off the speaker face, so it captured a lot of the floor bounce in the room, in addition to like the edge profile of the cone. That's why there's two each of these tracks, and well, that's not an actual input yet. Need another camera. Okay, so we got three different tracks of guitars, and they're panned across sort of mid-right, mid-left, and slight left. And then he's got a couple of little extra effect, like harmonic things on these 2 tracks here. And then he's got 4 vocal tracks, and they're also panned in hopefully an interesting, complex manner. We have a vocal effects track because if you look on this, he had a delay here, and it just ruined the sound of the vocal. So we popped it over here, and now we're running it through a bus. And I put some compression in front of that so it would kind of make it pop a little more without getting too annoying. And then these are all my vocal tracks here. This is the You Get to Be Here bits and some of my other lead stuff over here. And if you keep going down, Elder went through and sort of brutally removed some things. As he should. I mean, basically was throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what would stick, and he decided not a whole lot of it would stick, which is cool, because there's other stuff here too. And then this is my voice in the head lyrics right here from another session, and then this is like the harmony background bits for that. And then this is the bowl that we recorded. Hui. It was me that recorded that. And I had it going through the whole thing originally. Yeah, I'm not sure which screen we were looking at there, but the bowl was going, it kind of mudded things up. So now it's just kind of selectively placed in certain spots where it adds dimension and texture in a way that we like. Especially the beginning, the middle, the break in the middle where the drums come back in and everything starts kicking ass again, and then at the end. And then at the bottom here, I've been using this Moog app a lot, this Moog plugin, and I just adore it. The sounds are crazy cool, and I'm usually suckered into arpeggiated sounds, and so that's what I sort of found for the descending bit. Just really love that stuff. So that's where this whole thing is at right now. So if we select track length and we can listen to it, and I'll shut up. Oh, what was that glitch? That wasn't fun. Bugger. I don't know what that was, but doesn't normally do that. Anyway, well, there you go. That's You Get to Be Here as it stands today. We're gonna try to get some female vocals on it, and then I have a guitar solo. I was just informed is being tackled by our friend Ben Marsh Davis here, who's kind of a local Redlands musical god, USC graduate, and kind of a badass. Bass, guitar, writes, sings, just, you know, he knows it all, right? Like, he's very well studied, but he writes really cool shit. So we invited him to put a guitar on this, and so it's going to fill in a couple of the blanks that you hear right now. But yeah, this is headed towards completion, and it's going to be on our record, the Pre Estatic Joy Disorder, our record called No Refunds, which is a fun journey through some wild times. And we have a song order we're working on right now. We really love it. It's going to be just shy of 40 minutes. We're probably going to do some vinyl if we have our way. I think we're even talking about doing cassettes. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens when we put this in the world. That we've got ideas for videos, and anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching this sort of dive into how this track came to be and where it's at now. We'll see you next time.